They say money gives you choices. They say it buys silence. They say it protects you from being hurt. I believed all of that, so I offered a homeless man $1 million not out of kindness, but out of pride. What I didn't know was that he once ruled the city from the shadows, that he had lost more than I'd ever owned, and that loving him would force me to lose everything I thought made me powerful. This is my story. And this is how everything I believed about control, status, and love fell apart. Before I take you back to the beginning, before the mistake that changed my life, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me until the end. Because some stories don't just entertain you, they expose you. My name is Evelyn Carter. I was 34 years old when this story truly began. On paper, I was successful in every way that mattered to the world. I built my fortune myself, no shortcuts, no inheritance, no favors, private equity deals, commercial real estate, early investments in tech startups that exploded at exactly the right time. People admired me. Competitors feared me. Employees listened when I spoke. I lived in a glass penthouse in downtown Chicago, high enough that the city looked quiet from above. At night, I would stand by the window with a glass of wine and watch the lights flicker like stars, tiny, distant, manageable. That's how I liked my life, contained, controlled, but none of that impressed my parents. My parents came from old money, the kind of money that doesn't chase opportunity, it waits for it to arrive already dressed correctly. They believed success should look a certain way, sound a certain way, marry a certain way. And no matter how much I earned, no matter how many deals I closed, I was still unfinished in their eyes because I wasn't married. Not to the right man anyway. Every family dinner felt like a performance review I never passed. My mother's smile was polite but sharp. My father's words were calm but dismissive. "You've done well," he would say. "But success doesn't mean much if it isn't shared correctly." And then one night, one sentence changed everything. We were sitting at the dining table, crystal glasses glowing under soft light. My mother looked at me and said, almost casually, "Love without status is charity, Evelyn, and charity always ends in regret." She said it like it was wisdom, like it was fact. Something inside me went quiet, not angry, not loud. Just cold. I realized then that they didn't want my happiness. They wanted my obedience. And I decided I was done giving it to them. 2 weeks later, during another carefully staged family gathering, I stood up. My voice didn't shake. "I'm going to marry someone you'd never approve of," I said. They laughed, softly, confidently. That laughter felt worse than anger, so I raised the stakes. "I'll give $1 million to the first homeless man I meet downtown, no contracts. No conditions, just opportunity." Silence swallowed the room. My father looked embarrassed. My mother looked offended. "A homeless man will never be your equal," she said. I smiled. "Watch me." I didn't realize then that the moment I said those words, I had already lost control. 3 days later, I drove myself downtown. No driver, no assistant, no security. Just me and the echo of my parents' disbelief in my head. The city changed as I drove. Glass towers gave way to brick buildings, then to cracked sidewalks, then to places the city pretended not to see. I parked near the river under an old bridge. That's where I saw him. He wasn't where I expected him to be, not mixed in with the others, not holding a sign, not calling out. He sat alone, tall, broad-shouldered, still. His clothes were worn but clean, his beard neatly trimmed, his eyes sharp, too sharp. He didn't look broken, he looked paused, and something about that unsettled me. I stepped closer. My heels sounded loud against the concrete. "Excuse me," I said. He looked up slowly. "Yes." His voice was calm, controlled, not desperate, not grateful, not afraid. That threw me off more than anything else. I told him everything. The money, the reason. The point I wanted to prove. I expected shock. Instead, he laughed, not cruelly, not bitterly, just knowingly. "Lady," he said, "you don't buy dignity, you earn it." That irritated me. "I'm not buying you," I snapped. "I'm investing?" He studied me for a long moment, like he was deciding whether I was worth correcting. "What's your name?" I asked. "Daniel," he said. It wasn't his real name, but I didn't know that yet. He agreed, but only if I followed his rules. No cameras, no control, no turning him into a story. "If you're doing this to feel superior," he said, "find someone else." Something about his tone made me agree immediately. That should have warned me. I expected gratitude. I didn't expect resistance. He read every document carefully. asked questions that surprised my lawyers, refused luxury apartments. "I don't need reminders of who I used to be," he said once. That sentence stayed with me. We talked late at night about mistakes, about power, about regret. For the first time in my life, someone wasn't impressed by my money. And I didn't know who I was without it. I thought I was in control. I thought I was proving a point. I thought I was the one giving something away. I didn't realize yet that I was the one being exposed. And that the man I thought I was rescuing had already survived a world far darker than mine. A week after meeting him, I took him to a charity gala. Not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I wanted to see how he moved in my world. He wore a suit that fit like it was made for him, not flashy, not overdone, just clean lines and quiet power. We walked together, and I realized everyone was staring. I could feel it in their eyes. Who is this man? Where did he come from? I tried to smile. I tried to keep him from noticing. But he did. He glanced at me, raising one eyebrow, and I saw the faintest hint of amusement. One man froze mid-conversation when he saw Dominic, paled, turned, and left the room abruptly. I noticed. I turned to him, whispering, "Do you know him?" He shook his head casually. "No," he said. But something in his eyes told me he was lying. It made my heart thud in a way I hadn't expected. After the gala, we walked the quiet streets of Chicago. I tried to make small talk. But the questions I had about his past, about who he really was, kept me silent. Finally, I asked the one question I'd been afraid to say aloud. "Who are you really?" He didn't answer immediately. He just looked at me, the streetlights casting shadows across his face. Then he said quietly, "I was someone powerful and dangerous." I froze. "What do you mean?" I whispered. He exhaled, letting out a long, measured breath. "I ran an empire, one that controlled things you wouldn't even believe, and I walked away from it." I felt my chest tighten. A million questions rushed through my mind, and yet I felt drawn in. A few days later, my father called. "Where did you find him?" His voice shook. Confused, I asked why. He sent me documents, court records, newspaper clippings, old investigations, and that's when I learned the truth. Daniel wasn't Daniel, he was Dominic Russo, once known as the Dawn of the South Side. A man who had disappeared after a violent collapse, declared dead, but very much alive. I felt the ground shift beneath me. Everything I thought I knew about him, about us, was suddenly uncertain. That evening, I confronted him. "Who are you?" I demanded. "I trusted you. I offered you a chance, and you lied to me." He didn't flinch. He looked at me with the calm patience of a man who had survived far worse. "I didn't lie," he said softly. "I let you see me without the crown, that's all." My hands shook. "You used me," I whispered. "No," he said, placing a hand gently on mine. "I didn't use you, I let you see someone real. Someone human." And for the first time I felt exposed. Not by him, by myself. I realized my pride, my desire to prove a point had blinded me. And now I had a choice, run back to safety or step into the unknown. My parents called that night. Threats, pleas, warnings, but for the first time I heard none of it. I made my decision. I chose him, not the man he had been, not the myth he had once been. The man he was right now, broken, powerful, human, real. We moved into a modest townhouse. No skyline view, no security, no guarantee. I was terrified. "Are you okay?" he asked one night as I stared at the ceiling. "I've never been this free," I admitted. "And I've never been this scared." He nodded. "That's how you know it's real." For the first time, I understood what freedom really meant, not the absence of responsibility, but the presence of choice. We started a foundation, not charity. Not publicity, real people, real help. Housing, jobs, legal aid, education, all given quietly, all given with dignity. And as we worked together, I began to see layers of him I hadn't before. The sharp intelligence, the strategic mind, the quiet compassion hiding under decades of pain. And I realized something terrifying. I wasn't rescuing him. He was quietly reshaping me. But the past has a way of resurfacing. A folded note slid under our door. "Ghosts don't stay buried." Dominic's eyes hardened. I felt my stomach twist. Because for the first time I realized this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about us. Two men appeared at our office one evening. Clean suits, cold eyes, no introductions, no explanations. Dominic didn't flinch. He watched them, calculated. And I realized that he wasn't afraid, he was ready. But I was terrified. I sat on the couch later that night, staring at the city skyline. I thought about everything I had lost, my penthouse, my pride, the illusion of control, and yet I felt more alive than ever. Because for the first time, I wasn't living to prove a point. I was living for us. For the possibility that love could exist outside rules, expectations, and fear. Dominic made a call that night, a number he hadn't dialed in 10 years. And I watched him from across the room, heart pounding. Because sometimes the only way to protect the future is to confront the past head-on. Dominic made that call late at night. I didn't need to ask who it was. I already knew. Victor Hale, his old strategist, his former right-hand man, the man who had helped build everything Dominic had ever controlled. Either I'm talking to a ghost, Victor said with a hint of amusement on the line, or hell just froze over. Dominic didn't flinch. I'm here, he said quietly. I want it to stop. I didn't ask what it meant, I just knew that the past was about to knock hard. They met in a private room above a closed casino. No guns, no threats. Just two men who had once commanded power most people didn't survive. Victor leaned forward. You step in once, he said. You remind them who you were and they disappear. Dominic shook his head. That version of me is gone, he said. Victor's laugh was dry, sharp. History doesn't just vanish, you don't get to erase it, you only get to decide who controls it. Dominic didn't answer, he just nodded. And I realized that I had no idea how much he had already endured, how careful and measured every move had been. While he dealt with his past, I stayed home. Every minute stretched. Every sound made my heart race. I wasn't afraid of him becoming violent. I was afraid of him shutting down again. Of the man I loved disappearing into the shadows the way he always had. Dominic returned that night. He hadn't made a deal. He hadn't agreed to reclaim power. Instead, he dismantled it. Through old contacts, financial trails, and anonymous tips, he exposed the network that had once controlled half the city. Money laundering, corrupt companies, hidden alliances. Every piece handed to the right authorities. Quietly, precisely, Victor called him furious. You're burning everything? He shouted. Dominic stayed calm. No, he said, I'm letting it collapse. A bullet slid across our doorstep the next day. I picked it up with trembling fingers. For a split second I considered running, but Dominic's presence behind me grounded me. This ends tonight, he said. I didn't question him, I trusted him, even though my stomach churned with fear. Dominic walked alone into the warehouse district where his empire had begun. 3 men waited, one raised a gun. You should have stayed dead, he sneered. Dominic didn't flinch. No backup, no weapons. I did, he said softly. You're just late to notice. Then sirens, floodlights, federal agents. The trap was already set. The network collapsed without Dominic ever firing a shot. No one had to die. No one had to take the fall besides those who had already made the choice to harm others. Dominic didn't walk away untouched. He testified. He answered for his past crimes. No excuses, no denials. His sentence wasn't prison. It was something harder, constant supervision, no anonymity, no escape from accountability. And for the first time in decades, he didn't run. Friends warned me. Advisors warned me. Even my parents tried to scare me. This will follow you forever, they said, but I stood beside him anyway. I didn't choose a perfect man, I said. I chose an honest one. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. The foundation grew quietly, not massive. Not flashy, but meaningful. We helped people rebuild lives without cameras, applause, or judgment. Housing, jobs, legal aid, education, and through it all, Dominic and I built a life together. Small, quiet, honest. Years later, my mother came to visit, not to lecture, not to demand, just to see what we had built. She didn't apologize, she didn't even smile at first, but she stayed, and eventually she helped. Sometimes I wonder if I would have done it all the same way. Would I have offered him money? Would I have risked everything? Yes, because love isn't about safety. It isn't about wealth, status, or control. It's about courage. And the willingness to face the past together. One night we sat on the townhouse steps watching the city lights flicker. Do you regret it? I asked him once. I regret who I was, he said, but never who I became. Neither do I. Love doesn't save you from your past. It gives you the courage to face it and choose differently. I never imagined life after him, after Dominic, after the chaos. When I first offered him money, I thought I was proving a point. That I could bend the world to my will, that I could impress my parents with control and power. I was wrong. Because the only thing I couldn't control was the human heart. Our mornings are slow, no penthouse, no glass towers, no applause. I brew coffee while he reads the paper. Sometimes we sit in silence, watching the city wake. Other times we talk about work, people we help, the small victories that don't make headlines, and sometimes we laugh, quietly, intimately. It's not glamorous, it's not impressive, but it's ours. I think back to the night we met under the bridge. I thought I was giving him opportunity. I thought I was in control. I didn't know that he had survived a world far darker than mine. I didn't know that he had lost everything and chosen to walk away. I didn't know that trust would become my greatest challenge and my greatest gift. The foundation grew slowly but deliberately. Every family we helped became part of a quiet revolution, people rebuilding lives without shame, without spectacle. Dominic's past knowledge of the streets combined with my business mind created something extraordinary. We never advertised, we never demanded attention, and yet slowly, quietly, the world noticed. They came to see us one day, not to scold, not to judge, just to witness what we built. My mother didn't apologize. My father didn't bow, but they stayed, and eventually they helped. It wasn't reconciliation as I had imagined. It was something quieter, something earned. I realized that love doesn't demand applause. It demands patience, observation, and humility. Dominic changed too, not because he had to, not because he wanted praise, but because he finally allowed himself to live fully without fear. He faced his past head-on. He dismantled his empire with precision, handing over truth to the authorities. No vengeance, no glory, no running. And in that choice, he taught me the hardest lesson I've ever learned. Sometimes power lies in letting go. I see now that love isn't about status, wealth, or control. It isn't about proving a point. Love is choosing someone over fear, choosing someone over pride, choosing someone even when the world whispers you can't. It's the courage to trust. Even when trust feels dangerous. Even when the past is dark. Even when your heart is unsure. 5 years later, our life is quiet. Our townhouse overlooks the city, not the skyline, not the empire, just the heartbeat of Chicago. We walk the streets hand in hand, knowing we've faced the worst. We've survived. We've built something lasting. Sometimes I watch him sleep. I think about how close we came to never meeting. How close we came to letting fear dictate our lives. And I whisper a silent thank you to him, to the city, to chance. I don't regret offering him money. I don't regret risking everything. I don't regret trusting him. Because in that risk, in that choice, I found more than love. I found courage. I found truth. I found a life worth living, and that life is ours. Love doesn't save us from our past. It gives us the courage to face it, to survive it, and to choose differently. And sometimes choosing differently is the most powerful thing you can ever do.